If there's something about me that you should know is that I love to play video games. Shocker, I know. After a period in my childhood where I didn't really play them, it's now more than ever that I began to take a greater interest in them. Not just playing them, but watching people develop and learning about the medium in general. Part of this is the accessibility of the distribution of games. If you have a console or computer and some idea of how technology works, it's easy to find and play them. Maybe too easy, as you can build up an entire library of experiences to open and close, none of which is more apparent than with Steam. With how many games and software and how much of it goes on sale or being free within and outside of the platform, you can be oblivious to the fact that you're developing the backlog. The backlog is a nebulous concept in gaming spaces discussing the endless journey to touch and play the bountiful games in one's digital and human world, populated by a ton of videos trying to share their tips on how to conquer that. I am not a fan of this concept for two reasons. One, given my nature of resisting any sort of external pressure put upon me, tackling this massive list leads to the inevitability of failure and disappointment. Second, I am also busy with a lot of other work, both creative and otherwise. I don't really spend a lot of time playing them in a given week, so I couldn't necessarily face it head on. With all these circumstances, I then decided to forsake that task in favor of just playing a single game one at a time, and then proceeding to write a short paragraph about it. However, there are so many games that catch my eye and that I hope to play in the future that I don't get into way later. Nowhere is that more prevalent than the close to 50 games in that library alone. In an effort to see what I am truly interested in and which ones I would come back to finish, today I am trying out several games in my current library, all varying in genre and art and recognition. With the collections featured on Steam, I organized every game into categories. Of course, the ones which I already touched and or beat in their separate section, but I separated out games from larger series into their own for future endeavors, and very large games that I might touch into later, with one exception. This leads to 10 games that I am going to try out for this video. I should put a disclaimer here that these are more first impressions than a review of the games, since I've only parts of the game that I played from around 1 to 2 hours of footage, but rest assured, I am giving these a fair shake. But with that in mind, let's start our session. For this first game, I finally got to play something that I have been meaning to open up for some time. I know plenty of people who love this game, and I've been waiting for the opportunity to crack this open. For those of you who don't know, Celeste is a 2D platformer about this girl who climbs up a mountain, but there are strange occurrences that happen, both when she encounters other people and her own personality. My first thoughts are that the moves outside of analog running are simple and easy to execute. You have jumping, both short by tapping A and high by pressing A. Interacting with walls is as easy as just leading right and left on a vertical surface, and wall jumping is sticking to yourself to each as soon as you begin to slide. The climb is a helpful move when you grip to the wall and shimmy up and down, but you have a short time before getting tired, so you have to jump off soon. It helps the smooth from being overpowered, while also giving the opportunity to get up on a still surface. The interesting move comes with dashing, as you press both the left trigger and X while holding in the direction that you want to dash towards. I like how it's indicated by a light blue hair, some sort of special form that you can do once unless you stand on a surface or face one of those green diamonds that gives you an extra dash. All of these moves together make some of the most engaging position-based gameplay that I have ever faced before. I haven't really played any sort of platform that's specifically challenging before. As one who is sort of casual and plays games that are often generous in their level design, allowing you to cruise throughout, you're going to face obstacles and bottomless pits everywhere, as well as interacting with all sorts of platforms that play in your momentum. I had a lot of deaths, often because I could not conquer the obstacle or slipped up frequently. I took a break with my thumbs and hands just to rest from the pressure. It's challenging, but never impossible, and you must concentrate and know what to do at that moment. It's not for everyone. I have a friend who struggled to get into the gameplay, but it's satisfying for me. I've only just gotten into the meat of the story from the first 3 chapters, but they're all highlights. You meet a fellow explorer, Theo, as well as his hotel guy at a closed summit hotel with a ton of clutter, which felt the hardest, yet most engaging. I thought it was close to frustrating, but I didn't give up, and it felt great to overcome the challenges. Definitely hooked on this game. I am very willing to play more of it later. The next game that I'll be playing comes from a familiar genre to me, the point-and-click puzzle adventure. I had no idea what this game was from the cover, even when my sister had it downloaded onto the Switch. However, I could not resist the deal when it had a free giveaway on Steam in promotion of the upcoming sequel. And so, I decided that the time is now. At least until I decided to make this video. On the surface, it looks like one of those old personal computer games that are point and click and involve some kind of mystery, just with full 3D graphics. To be honest, I have a fondness for these types of games as a child, along with my sister as well, although my sister's taste lean a lot more puzzle and hidden object than mine. It starts off very unassuming as you play from the perspective of a museum worker that looks at the strange items received through the mail. When you start off, you receive a large box with a message attached from the team of colleagues in an archaeological investigation. Instantly, you must shift your mouse around and click on objects. You can double left click to zoom in and right click to zoom out. I had some trouble with my mouse, but you work with holding that left click to drag stuff, more completely functional. It's simple enough to know what to do, but it's just obtuse and mysterious enough to keep it engaging. You must look all around and at the notes, but the fun comes in tinkering and looking around at everything and figuring the puzzle out. You first start with figuring out how this 3D printer works, and then you'll use this later to print out the knob of another box to open it. And then you find all these parts to construct an anti-gravity machine that's antiquely futuristic. The one thing I love about this is that you get a sense of mystery and world building through the objects that you interact with. And the visuals showcase this, having a metallic sheen that showcases some age and rust underneath the ambient noise. It's a very special game for me that I am very excited to come back later, because I only just scratched the surface of its mystery. And now, for something completely different. Here's a game that a small streamer gave away to a small community that I was a part of. And again, a free deal is a steal. But I always looked at this banner and delayed playing it because it looked so alien to me. But one resolution I try to keep when it comes to video games is trying new genres. And so I kept this in the back of my mind, until now. Okay, so when I opened this game on Steam, it asked if I wanted to launch in 2 different modes, a regular mode or a safe mode. Since I recorded gameplay, I decided to launch in safe mode. I never really had a game ask me this before. We start off with this exposition of this group of warriors who are united together, fighting pirates until they crash land to somewhere. First, viewing from a top-down perspective, we come across this girl with big punching fists, exploring the areas she crashed into. Later, she finds her big robot friend, and they go in search of the others. Okay, so the reason I'm afraid of this is because of 2 reasons. Fantasy and RPGs. I don't tend to consume a lot of fantasy media, like those with witches, wizards, or orcs, or anything magical or medieval. I don't really care for the kinds of stories with them, and part of that is that I get overwhelmed by way too much information of, like, a world that isn't familiar to me at all. If the world isn't comprehensible to me, chances are I will get invested into the story or characters. At least the characters are aware of this alien environment and all of the cool features. Although, when it comes to exploration, it tends to be a little blurry. I can still see the character moving around the area and important items crates are highlighted. But it's difficult to see the beauty of the environments when you are a glasses wearer, and this reminds you of when you don't have glasses on. At least the battles and overworld map is clear. I came across this town and a gate for a separate port. When it comes to battles, well, here comes another immovable object. I don't like turn-based combat. Not that I am bad at it, I am able to understand what to do, but it's never engaging for me to figure out. You have moves, you execute them, and see what happens, but I get into a single strategy and just execute that. The worst part for me is constantly getting into battles. I get that you do them to gain experience and strategy, but it's annoying to get interrupted when I want to gauge into the gameplay. You can flee, but sometimes you can't. But why give me a system to not play a battle when that's the main gameplay? There are a few things that differentiate it, however. One, you can see the left side of the screen of who goes next, which is a helpful indicator of which character you play as, and determine what moves beforehand. But also, the health of the enemies can vary, which does engage me a bit in the lack of expectation, figuring out suddenly what to do next. But I mainly kept attacking, and it worked. I came across a small village filling me in what this world is and a gate to an old fortress, but I didn't seem to remember it that well. So far, I'm not sure if I'm willing to play this further, since it wasn't too engaging for me, but I hope someone else enjoys this game more than I do. I'm not fully opposed to RPGs or even fantasy, but I'm gonna have to really search for that one that truly clicks for me. On the other hand, here is a game from a genre that I like that I'm sure few people care for or like at all. How I received this game is a funny story. When I was clicking on one of those recommended articles on my phone's browser based on your search history, there was one about receiving a free game when you signed up for a Sega newsletter. Sure enough, I signed for that newsletter immediately, and redeemed it immediately once I got notified. I came to realize that I really like fishing mechanics in video games, as far as I know, and I actually like the Big to Cat fishing stages in Sonic Adventure. So obviously, I am playing this on Steam, but I feel like it's important to note that this version is a port of the Dreamcast version, which was released after the original arcade machine. I say that because it retains its arcade roots, explained into a full game, that the original utilized a fishing controller, which is a very cool thing to utilize. Now this is also different from the other games I talked about before, in that it doesn't have a story and traditional ending, so this is just a recall of the casual intermittent experience I have playing it. It has an arcade mode, original mode, and practice mode, but they function the same just with time limits and levels. You can select a fisher out of 2, 1 out of 3 locations, and 1 out of 3 times of the day, which is more of a factor than you realize as to the number of fish that you can catch. After you select some bait, with many working with some fish better than others, and throwing your rod out. It's meant to be quick and less relaxing, as you can reel it slowly or fast. But once the fish bites, the tension rises while you balance reeling in your rod and moving it left and right without breaking the string. It's a great feeling when you instinctively move your controller back while moving the analog stick and holding the right trigger, and you finally catch a fish. It's wonderful. I could see myself playing this game from time to time. It's honestly great for those quick bites of gameplay, if you know what I mean. I forgot how I received this game in particular, maybe from somebody offering it. But regardless, the banner on Steam looks really cool and artistic. I have no idea what this one is about, other than an entry in a small series of games. Apparently WayForward Technologies was assisting another developer. Okay, what I do know is that this is a spiritual successor to the Castlevania series, which I never played before. So please inform me if this is a good way to get into them for the future. So there's a little bit of exposition that again feels like a lot to me, but it is a bit more interesting first because it takes place in 18th century England during the Industrial Revolution. Basically, a bunch of experiments were performed on humans in which they were fused with these demon-infused crystals of various powers. But they got too powerful and started killing people. They were banished and sacrificed, except two. Gebel, who escaped, and Miriam, who fell into a 10-year-long slumber. We followed the latter character and a friend on a ship on a stormy night on the way to stop Gebel when it gets hijacked by demons. Immediately, you received a few weapons such as firearms, swords, and kicking boots, along with your basic movement. It doesn't really matter that much because the combat is tight and snappy, executing moves as quickly as you can on foot and in air. I fought a few different enemies while traversing through almost every corner on the ship, discovering chests and opening new parts of the map. The most distinctive part of this game is when you strike a demon and unleashes a shard on you, allowing you to use some sort of magical power to which you can equip. Utilizing the right stick and the right trigger, it allows for greater damage, but to prevent overuse it must charge up when you could use it again. More importantly, I love the entire aesthetic, an 18th century styling in the outfits and monster designs, such as this one with a mace and medieval armor, and the cannons that you must light up to unlock different parts of the ship, which is a great touch with the shard powers. I was enjoying the music and traversing throughout the ship until we encountered Gebel in the first futile attempt to convince him to stop wreaking havoc. He leaves and transforms into a blood brewer, but not before sicking an underwater lady boss, and I could not beat it at all. I was able to score some hits, but it felt too overwhelming for me to see the tentacles, the spawn enemies, the projectiles of water and magical spit, I think, while trying to hit the boss on a moving ship. Probably a skill issue on my side, but I felt a little defeated. I did enjoy this game regardless, but maybe this would be a little bit better for me if I played more games like this, the Castlevania games to be precise, as a child, as opposed to now. So if you are into them, check this one out. Here is a game that I've been wanting to try for a long while. The LEGO licensed games from Star Wars onwards have been a staple of many people's childhood, including mine. Many people highlight Star Wars, Marvel, even Batman, but I want to feature and experience a different adventure game, LEGO City Undercover. It was originally on the Wii U as part of an exclusivity deal with Nintendo for third-party games on the console, but then later in 2017 it got ported to other modern consoles and Steam, where I am playing this. First of all, sorry for the gameplay being laggy and underpowered. I do not know if this was just my stream, or just the laptop running this struggling to make it work. I had to set up the capture beforehand since I can't key out of the game to make sure it registers in OBS. This doesn't affect my opinions about this game, and I was still able to run it despite those problems. You play as Chase McCain, a police officer who returns to Lego City on the account of notorious criminal Rex Fury, who escaped from federal prison, and your job is to maintain the peace and catch this criminal. The funniest part is that you can technically destroy everything you can for studs and collectibles, and build them up again and take over cars for pursuit and drive around all over to certain locations. But you have the authority to do so. There's also this incredibly grumpy chief, the bumbling assistant Frank Honey, and Ellie Phillips on call to assist you with tasks. Putting aside the conversation of whether this can be satire or not, the game has a great sense of humor thus far, as in these characters real people acting absurd or things happening, and naturally lends itself to a sense of fun. Sort of like Grand Theft Auto, but for kids. You can explore the entire world as you please, whether you're on or off task. And you'll also have this communicator, which still looks like a Wii U gamepad, funnily enough, to investigate for clues and track suspects to arrest. None of it is particularly difficult, but I don't think it's intended to be so. The music is also pretty good, showing the 70s cop funk music reminiscent of more humorous police procedurals, or Brooklyn Nine-Nine, whatever you prefer. Great game so far. Preferably, I would want it to work better in the future. If I was excited for the last one, I'm way more excited to finally open this one, which I bought and its accompanying soundtrack immediately after hearing it be on sale. And I guess I wasn't sure of the right time to play it. But that time is now. And the reason that I am excited for this is because this is a game based off of OKKO, Let's Be Heroes, one of my favorite Cartoon Network shows, both modern and of all time. An extremely kinetic and charming superhero action show of the late 2010s. It has incredible art design and animation, likable characters, and a great sense of humor and changing continuity to its universe that was unfortunately screwed over by the network in terms of its scheduling and exposure, that was still able to tell a satisfying story from start to end. I could go on for days, but I should talk about this game that is set in this universe. For this game, there are new power chords, the card game in this universe, that are Hall of Royal Edition, which means that the characters in this world can be summoned, which are rapidly integrated into the environment. KO, being a young kid, at once takes it upon himself to have his own, while also unlocking other cards. You start off in the plaza on your typical shift at Gore's Bodega, in which you have to protect Rad's fan from the Boxmore robots, the villains in this show, which steal with a metal claw. First, before getting into the gameplay, the art style of this game is incredible. Translating that loose, flowing character animation into this lineless style, with smoothness and polish, while still keeping the designs of the characters intact. Reading about it, series creator Ian Jones-Cordy wanted to collaborate with a developer that understood his vision for a game with a good level of quality and control. This also translates into the main gameplay outside of the world traversal that is about as speedy as tight as can be, which is a straightforward beat 'em up. It tells me how to perform those moves and try them out, which is effective to remember easily, especially since the opponents introduce blocking and new moves. They do use the same robots often, but it is fitting of this show, as commonplace the attacks that they are. I'll talk about the notebook as the pause menu for a brief moment, which shows you current power cards that can be leveled up and seeing your moves and tasks near the end of the menu along with this beatboxing. It's just all so charming. I am already on board with this game, and I just scratched the surface of this story, in which Lord Boxman buys out the company of power cards from under. What will happen? Anyways, please check this game out. Let's check out something less intense and high energy. I found the sequel to this game in a Humble Bundle somewhere, and so I wondered, why do I have this first one, thinking that there are two different games? It seems like such an unassuming, game to play. Immediately, this is a sort of casual simulation game, where there isn't really a story with a definitive endpoint, just a simple premise to play levels towards an end goal. You are a struggling artist trying to paint your way to fame. You set up somewhere with your easel and paints, with two tables set up to display your paintings. People walk around your tables as you paint pretty much whatever in hopes of staying afloat and achieving that fame and legacy. Emphasis on whatever, because you can paint pretty much anything, as you are given a bunch of colors and shades, flipping the canvas vertically or horizontally, and the size of the brush to which you can scroll the mouse wheel to change the size. For me, specifically, I cannot really think of you on the fly, so I have to think about the simplest paintings to execute fast, or by asking your stream chat of what to draw. I think this would make an excellent game to play in front of a live online audience, because you can have people ask you to paint the most beautiful art, or the goofiest pieces of all with a mouse. People can reject your art and abandon it, or willing to bid for it, either at the base asking price or negotiate for a higher cost. I didn't necessarily try the system, but I assume it's a gamble to whether you succeed or not. The major course is to successfully pay your bills while not going under, which did happen, and it was very sad. Rest assured, I did try my best, and while I am not sure I'm fully on board with playing the rest, it is a unique experience that is worth trying. Let's throw in a curveball. This is the oldest game that I have in my library from 1998, originally released to computers, with this version being the 25th anniversary edition that reverts to its original look, but fixes and adds content. They gave it away last year on Steam as part of a promotion, and again, free deal, for at least 10 hours. And if there's a genre that I played even less of when compared to role-playing and simulation games, it's shooters. As a child, I didn't really gravitate to them, and that has remained as an adult. They just don't look appealing to me generally, but still, I want to give this genre a shot. Immediately, they gave me a bunch of options, and picked the training mode to get familiar with the controls. Using a mouse and keyboard, which makes the most sense considering that this is a computer game, I went through the tutorial smoothly. The only problems were that when strafing, it felt a little too loose, and when doing multiple actions, I had to time my presses on multiple keys, but I can chalk that up to the skill issue on my part. That training mode is set up in the Black Mesa Research Facility, an underground organization made for strange experiments, to which you take on the role of physicist Gordon Freeman. The scientists, in their low-poly look, test a bizarre crystal which goes horribly wrong for the entire facility, causing aliens to appear. I was trying to escape and shoot through the aliens, and let's just say that I ran out of ammo immediately, even on easy mode. I am not that good here, considering all the looking around with the mouse that doesn't quite work anymore, but I can't say that it's not engaging. Maybe I'll start over again in the future, probably with someone who knows this game much more than I do. The last game that we'll be taking a look at is the most recent game of this roster, released only a few months ago. I don't tend to gravitate towards brand new games since I want to explore the gaming past more often, but I stayed my ear towards the ground for interesting newer stuff to keep tabs on. Several months ago, I saw a Nintendo Indie World presentation that featured this game that I had never seen before, being a Dark Souls-like game but with sea animals. I honestly thought, could this be my first Souls-like? Now, a Souls-like is a subsection with a colloquial genre name of action RPGs focusing on difficult combat and atmospheric storytelling originating from the Dark Souls games, or from software, but it could apply to any sort of game. I've always been intrigued by these games, mainly in vicarious playthroughs of certain games. I will be honest, like most, I am intimidated by how they work as well as the fantasy styles being visually stunning, but not enough for me to latch onto them. That is, until this one. You play as a little hermit crab, who due to the changing tides of the sea with a new queen apparently, the lone shark takes away his home shell, and so goes on a quest to do so, jumping into the water for the first time to find instant danger. And so you're equipped with a fork and find a shell, anything that can be recovered is used, to find the queen for many tasks to retrieve it, at least from what I played thus far. Instantly, there is something familiar here for me, a little bit of platforming. You can jump and swim for a precise landing for those tricky sections. But the main part, the exploration into the desolate and polluted seas and encounters, are the main part. You must fight to survive, as you can focus on hitting precisely and dodging attacks to stay alive, and in self-defense. As a person who never played these sorts of games before now, it is a bit unwieldy at first, how many enemies lunge at you, but the thing is knowing when to dodge and attack, as well as your shell for minimizing damage. I died to Nephro the God so many times, feeling frustrated that I couldn't quite understand, but learning what to do and what not to do. And it makes me get stronger and better until finally kicking his behind. The developers know this as well, as there are difficulty options under the assist mode, which indicates that while it's supposed to be hard, there are options to still enjoy the game. I changed the difficulty for the purposes of learning how to fight properly and still got my crab kicked repeatedly, and it was gratifying once I succeeded. I am fully on board with this game, and I just scratched the surface, or in this case, cracked the shell on this wonderful journey. And there we have it. 10 games of varying genres and art and mechanics that I opened for the first time. Going through this speed dating session of interactive experiences, it opened my mind to new and perplexing media that I honestly would never even thought of trying before. I got 5 to 6 games that I'm really wanting to play further, and 4 others that, while I didn't fully get on board with, are not bad games by any means. Just not for me, but for others I would expect to truly love more. I got an insight into the specific types of games that I gravitate towards too, and I assume you watching saw what mine are. In the end, games are just art that we experience, regardless of what you think of One Piece is to you, and all are worthwhile experiences that we define ourselves. Now, would I recommend you going to Steam and getting a bunch of games to try it immediately? Well, not really, even with great deals on that site, since this is a collection that I accumulated throughout the past year, both on and off site. But if you are intimidated by that backlog of untouched experiences, I hope this gives you the impetus to try some of them out. You might find a gem you didn't realize before. Thank you for watching, and have a good session.